Elohim. Beautiful morning, welcome. Welcome to yourself. Welcome to everybody. Yeah, you're going to welcome yourself. Oh, yeah, that's great. Great day to honor and celebrate. Always wonderful to celebrate Shabbat.
It is.
Wonderful Elohim is just inspires us and blesses us, provides all things.
Yes.
We honor him. Wonderful, wonderful day. Let's rise up. Commence honoring our Lord, YaVo, Adonai. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom for all eternity. And you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And these words which I am commanding you today are to be on your heart. And you teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and they are to be a frontlets between your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself, and the entire Torah
And the prophets hang on
these two commandments. Let's continue to honor our God.
He will return to Jerusalem. Zion's King will restore the land. What a great way to start the morning. He is great.
Yeah. All the time.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise to you only. All the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Oh, let's sing that again. All the earth will shout your praise, our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lives, so we pour out our praise to you only. We do praise you, Lord. We love you, Father. You're the greatest, kindest, the most powerful. Praise you, Lord. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Lord. Pour out our praise. Thank you, Father.
This morning's parashah is Lecha. which means going out and out. So we have some great readings this morning from Parashah 12 to 17. And then after that, we have Isaiah. And then Romans, and then Messianic Jews. So enjoy reading this morning.
Genesis chapter 12. Then Adonai said to Abram, "Get going out from your land and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. My heart's desire is to make you into a great nation, to bless you, to make your name great, so that you may be a blessing. My desire is to bless those who bless you. But whoever curses you, I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed." So Abraham went, just as Adonai had spoken to him. Also Lot went with him. Now Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abraham took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his nephew, and all their possessions that they had acquired, and the people that they acquired in Haran. And they left to go to the land of Canaan, and they entered the land of Canaan. Abraham passed through the land as far as the place of Shechem, as far as Moreh's big tree. The Canaanites were in the land then. Then Adonai appeared to Abraham and said, "I will give this land to your seed." So there he built an altar to Adonai, who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the mountain to the east of Beth-El, and erected his tent, with Beth-El to the west and Ai to the east. There he built an altar to Adonai, and called on the name of Adonai. So Abraham kept on journeying southward. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abraham went down to Egypt to live as an outsider there, because the famine was severe in the land. Just as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, "Look, please, I know that you are an attractive woman. So when the Egyptians see you, they'll say, 'This is his wife,' and they'll kill me. But you, they'll let live. Please say that you are my sister, so that I'll be treated well for your sake. And my life will be spared because of you." Good old Abraham. When Abraham came to Egypt, the Egyptians did see that. Yeah, looking after number one. The Egyptians did see that the woman was very beautiful. Indeed, Pharaoh's officials saw her, and they raved about her to Pharaoh. She must have been a bit of a looker, all right. Then the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. But Abraham was treated well for her sake, and he got sheep, cattle, well, this is a good thing, male donkeys, male and female slaves, female donkeys and camels. But Adonai struck Pharaoh and his household with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. So Pharaoh called Abraham and said, "What's this?" Got on the blower. "What's this you did to me? Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her to be my wife? Now, here is your wife. Take and go." Clonk. That's the end of the conversation. Then Pharaoh instructed men concerning him, and they expelled him with his wife and everything that belonged to him.
Yes, Abram. So Abram went up from Egypt.
he and his wife and everything that belonged to him, and Lot with him, to the Negev. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, silver and gold. He proceeded by stages from the Negev as far as Beth-El, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Beth-El and Ai, to the place of the altar that he had made. Made there at first, and there Abram called on the name of Adonai. Lot separates from Abram. Now Lot, who was going with Abram, also had sheep and cattle and tents, so that the land could not support them living together, because their possessions were too many, and they were not able to stay together. So there was a quarrel between the shepherds of Abram's livestock and the shepherds of Lot's livestock. Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land then. So Abram said to Lot, "Please let there be no strife between me and you, or between my shepherds and yours, since we are relatives. Isn't the whole land before you? Please separate yourself from me. If to the left, then I'll go to the right, and if to the right, then I'll go to the left." Lot lifted up his eyes and saw that the whole area surrounding the Jordan was well watered in its entirety, before Adonai destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Like Adonai's garden, like the land of Egypt, till you come to Zoar. So Lot chose for himself the whole area surrounding the Jordan. Lot journeyed to the east, and they separated from each other. Abram dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the valley. And he moved his tent from place to place near Sodom. But the people of Sodom were very evil, very great sinners against Adonai. After Lot separated himself from him, Adonai has said to Abram, "Lift up your eyes now, and look from the place where you are to the north, south, east and west. For all the land that you are looking at, I will give to you and to your seed forever. I will make your seed like the dust of the earth, so that if one could count the dust of the earth, then your seed could also be counted. Get up, walk about the land through its length and width, for I will give it to you." So Abram moved his tent from place to place, and came and dwelt by Mamre's large trees, which are in Hebron, and there built an altar to Adonai. And I just wanted to say that one thing that I really got from Abram, who was Abraham now, but I really got how humble he was, that even with his brother or his cousin, that he gave him the best of the spoils when he was richer and better, could have perceived himself to be better. That's how humble he was. Amazing.
When Amraphel was king of Shinhar, Arioch, the king of Elazar, Kedorla, Homer, king of Helam, and Tidhal, king of Goyim. They made war together against Berah, king of Sodom, and against Parashah, king of Gomorrah, Shinhav, and king of Admah, Shem Ever, king of Zvoim, and king of Bela, which is the same as Zohar. All the latter kings joined forces in the Siddim Valley, where the Dead Sea is. They had served Kedorla Gomer 12 years, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, King Kedorla Gomer and the kings with him came and defeated the Rephaim in Rashtarot, Naim, and Zuzim in Ham. The Ein Mim and Sheva Kiriaim, and the Hori at Siheh, their mountain, all the ways to El Paran by the desert. Next they turned back, came to Chain Mishpat, which is the same as Kadesh, and defeated all the country of the Chamaleki, and also the Emori who lived in Hazat-Zon Tamar. Then the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zoim, and Bela, that is Zohar, came out and arrayed themselves for battle in the Siddim Valley against Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goim, Amraphel, king of Admah, and Arioch, king of Elasar, the 4 kings against 5. Now the Siddim Valley was full of clay pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, while the rest fled to the hills. The victors took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food supply. Then they left. But as they left, they took Lot, Avram's brother's son, and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. Someone who had escaped came and told Avram the Hebrew, who was living by the oaks of Mamre, the Emori, brother of Eshcol and brother of Raneh, all of them allies of Avram. When Avram heard that his nephew had been taken captive, he led out his trained men who had been born in his house, 318 of them, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. Dan means judgment. During the night, he and his servants divided forces against them, then attacked and pursued them all the way to Hovah, north of Damascus nowadays. He recovered all the goods and brought back his nephew Lot with his goods, together with the woman and the other people. After his return from slaughtering Kedorlaomer and the kings with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the Shaveh Valley, also known as the King's Valley. Melech Tzedek, king of Shalem, brought out bread and wine. He was the Cohen of El Elyon, Most High God. So he blessed him with these words: Blessed be Avram by El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth, and blessed be El Elyon, who handed your enemies over to you. Avram gave him 1/10 of everything. So the king of Sodom said to Avram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. But Avram answered the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand in an oath to Adonai El Elyon, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a thread or a sandal thong or anything that is yours, so that you won't be able to say, I made Avram rich. I will take only what my troops have eaten and the share of the spoil belonging to the men who came with me. Chaneh, Eshkol, and Mamre, let them have their share. Some tongue twisters in that one. No wonder he wasn't here.
Absolutely. I'm glad I didn't get it. Genesis 15. Sometime later, the word of Adonai came to Avram in a vision. Don't be afraid, Avram. I am your protector. Your reward will be very great. Avram replied, Adonai, God, what good will your gifts be to me if I continue childless, and Eliezer from Damascus inherits my possessions? You haven't given me a child, Avram continued, so someone born in my house will be my heir. But the word of Adonai came to him, this man will not be your heir. No, your heir will be a child from your own body. Then he brought him outside and he said, look up at the sky and count the stars, if you can count them. Your descendants will be that many. He believed in Adonai, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Then he said to him, I am Adonai, who brought you out from Ur-Kasdim to give you this land as your possession. He replied, Adonai, God, how am I to know that I will possess it? He answered him, bring me a 3-year-old cow, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a dove, and a young pigeon. He brought him all of these, cut the animals in two, and placed the pieces opposite each other. But he didn't cut the birds in half. Birds of prey swooped down on the carcasses, but Avram drove them away. As the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell on Avram. Horror and great darkness came over him. Adonai said to Avram, know this for certain, your descendants will be foreigners in a land that is not theirs. They will be slaves and held in oppression there 400 years. But I will also judge that nation, the one that makes them slaves. Afterwards they will leave with many possessions. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Only in the 4th generation will your descendants come back here, because only then will the Amorite be ripe for punishment. After the sun had set and there was thick darkness, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared, which passed between these animal parts. That day, Adonai made a covenant with Avram. I have given this land to your descendants, from the Valley of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, the territory of the Cani, the Kenizzi, the Kadmoni, the Hittite, the Perizzai, the Rephaim, the Emori, the Kenani, the Girgashai, and the Yevusi.
This is the beginning of our troubles today. For those who visit Israel and wonder about the battle that rages, this is where it begins. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, who had not borne him children, but she had an Egyptian slave girl, and her name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, look, now Adonai has prevented me from having children. Go, please, to my slave girl. Perhaps I'll get a son by her. Abram listened to Sarai's voice. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took her slave girl, Hagar the Egyptian, after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. Just had a thought. I wonder if this is payback for making her go be with Pharaoh. Never thought about that. Well, we're paying that price. Then he went to Hagar, and she became pregnant. When she saw that she was pregnant, in her eyes her mistress was belittled. So Sarai said to Abram, the wrong done to me is because of you. Oh, that confirms it. There we go. Confirmation. Thank you, Lord. The wrong done to me is because of you. I myself placed my slave girl in your embrace. Now that she saw that she has become pregnant, so in her eyes I am belittled. May Adonai judge between you and me. Marriage, what a gift. It's a gift from God. Abram said to Sarah, look! See the exclamation point? Your slave girl is in your hand. Do to her what is good in your eyes. So Sarai afflicted her, and she fled from her presence. Then the angel of Adonai found her by the spring of water in the wilderness next to the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's slave girl, where have you come from and where are you going? And she said, I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of Adonai said, return to your mistress and humble yourself under her hand. And then the angel of Adonai said to her, I will bountifully multiply your seed, and they will be too many to count. And then the angel of Adonai said to her, behold, you are pregnant and are about to bear a son, and you shall name him Ishmael, for Adonai has heard your affliction. He will be a wild donkey of a man, and his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. So true even to today. And away from all his brothers he will dwell. So she called Adonai, who was speaking to her. You are a God who sees me. For she said, would I have gone here indeed looking for him who looks after me? That is why the well is named, the well of the living one who sees me. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. Then Hagar gave birth to the son for Abram, and Abram named his son, who Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to Ishmael for Abram.
So, in 17, and it came to be when Abram was 99 years old that Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai, walk before me and be perfect. So, and I give my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Abraham fell on his face, and Elohim spoke to him, saying, as for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you the father of many nations, and I shall make you exceedingly fruitful. That's what we want. And make nations of you, and sovereigns shall come from you, and I shall establish my covenant between me and you, and your seed after you in the generations. For an everlasting covenant to be Elohim to you, and your seed after you. And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, and an everlasting possession. And I shall be their Elohim. And Elohim said to Abraham, as for you, guard my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you guard between me and you, and your seed after you. Every male child among you is to be circumcised. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall become a sign of the covenant between me and you, as our hearts. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male child in your generations. He who is born in your house or bought with silver from any foreigner who is not of your seed, he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your silver has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And an uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And Elohim said to Abraham, as for Sarah your wife, do not call her Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her, and also give a son by her. And I shall bless her, and she shall become nations, sovereigns of peoples are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, is a child born to a man who is 100 years old? Or is Sarah, who is 90 years old, to bear a child? Oh, God can do anything. And Abraham said to Elohim, oh, let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, no, Sarah, your wife is truly bearing a son for you, and you shall call his name Yitzhak. And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I shall bless him, and I shall make him fruitful. There's that fruitful again. And greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Yitzhak, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with his silver, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that same day as Elohim told him. And Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised that same day, and all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner, were circumcised with him.
Tongues ready to wrap around this one. Let us sing unto the Lord with joy, to the rock of our salvation. Let us sing unto the Lord with joy, to the rock of our salvation. And again, let us sing unto the Lord with joy, to the rock of our salvation. Let us sing unto the Lord with joy, to the rock of our salvation. Come into his presence with praise, singing and shouting, proclaim that Adonai is the great God. Come into his presence with praise, singing and shouting, proclaim that Adonai is our King. Well done. Next week we'll have some words for you.
Why do you say, O Jacob, and assert, O Israel, my way is hidden from Adonai, and the justice due me escapes the notice of my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? Adonai is the eternal God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow tired or weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives strength to the weary, and to one without vigor he adds might. Oh, we need that times, don't we? Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But they who wait for Adonai will renew their strength. They will soar up with wings as eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Be silent before me, O islands. Let peoples renew their strength. Let them draw near. Then let them speak. Let us come together for judgment. Who has stirred up one from the east? He calls justice to his feet. He gives nations over to him and subdues kings. He makes them like dust with his sword, as driven stubble with his bow. He pursues them, passing on safely by a path his feet had not travelled. Who has performed and done it, calling forth the generations from the beginning? I, Adonai, am the first and the last. I am he. The coastlands have seen and fear. The ends of the earth tremble. They draw near and come. Each one helps his neighbor and says to his brother, be strong. The craftsman encourages the smith, who smooths with the hammer, who strikes with the anvil, saying to the soldering, it's good, as he fastens it with nails, so that it will not totter. But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, descendant of Abraham, my friend, I took hold of you from the ends of the earth, and called from its uttermost parts, and said to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you, not rejected you. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Behold, all who were angry at you will be ashamed and disgraced. Those who quarrel with you will be as nothing and perish. Though you will look for those who had contended with you, you will not find them. Those who warred against you will be as nothing at all. For I am Adonai, your God, who upholds your right hand, who says to you, fear not, I will help you. Fear not, you warm. Fear not, you worm, Jacob. I didn't think it was right for a start. You men of Israel, I will help you. It is a declaration of Adonai, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. Look, I will make you a threshing sledge, new with sharp, double-edged spikes. You will thresh the mountains and grind them up, and will make the hills like chaff. You will winnow them, and a wind will carry them away. A storm wind will scatter them, but you will rejoice in Adonai. You will glory in the Holy One of Israel.
I'm sure each person here would like to be called a worm. There could be worse words to be called, and some people are called a lot worse things. Yeah, but it's a wonderful.
That worm in the Hebrew, I believe, is Torah. Torah, and it's a little worm that is crushed and used to make red dye.
Yeah.
So that's where Jacob, your sins be scarlet. So when he refers to him as Jacob, your worm, he's talking about him in his physical human sense. So when he calls him Israel, he's talking about when he's prevailing with God.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. It changes the way you view it and see it. Because it has purpose. Wonderful. We have the privilege now of Nevi is going to come and about the Lord's Supper.
Without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. Hebrews 9:22. This is because sin causes death and destruction. Life is in the blood. Leviticus 17:11. So is the cross about the wrath of God? God is wrathful about sin because of the destruction and death it brings, and therefore those who die in their sins, cursing God, will experience the wrath of God. But the cross is not an act of wrath, not an angry God punishing his son to appease his wrath. It is an act of great love. John 15:13, there is no greater love than to lay down your life for a friend. Did Yeshua want to go to the cross? No. At Gethsemane, Yeshua asked to be relieved of that if there was some other way to save mankind. However, he finished his prayer by saying to God, not my will, but your will be done. And he went willingly to the cross in obedience to his Father. At John 15:14, Yeshua said, you are my friends if you do what I command you. Take up your cross and follow me. Matthew 16:24 and Luke 9:23. The one perfect sacrifice of the one perfect man accomplished all. There's no need for us to sacrifice. It's done. It's a finished work. So taking up your cross is not about sacrifice. It's about obedience. He was obedient to the Father. He said, you're my friend if you follow my commands. So when we share in the bread and the wine, we should ask, Lord, show me to do what you want me to do, and I'll be obedient. When I was very young, at age 15, I took up an apprenticeship in a bakery in Dunedin called Wholesome Bakery. I didn't then know that flour was a problem for me, and that emerged later. But you know, that factory operated 24 hours. It had a night shift and a day shift, and sometimes I was on the day shift starting at 4:30 in the morning, and sometimes the night shift starting at 4:30 in the afternoon, 12-hour shifts. On a winter morning, when the snow and the sleet were pouring down, and I'm driving in from Mosgiel to Dunedin, cold, hungry, all I could think about was getting to work where there'd be hot, fresh bread coming out of the oven wholesome bread. That word wholesome means everything that's good is in this. It means there's no rubbish in here. It's good for you. Jesus, Yeshua, is the bread of life. My soul craves the wholesomeness that's in him. Just as my cold and hungry body wanted that fresh, wholesome bread when I got into the bakery at 4:30 in the morning. But that's nothing compared with that desire for the wholesomeness in Yeshua. So think on these things as we partake of the bread and the wine. Thank you.
I was going to tell Shimshon that according to Rashi, I mean, you're on the right track there with Hagar, that she was considered to be the princess of the Pharaoh, of where Sarai was taken. And the Pharaoh saw all the miracles with Avram and Sarai and said, it's better for my daughter to be a servant of Sarai than a princess in the house. So you can kind of see why she would rise above Sarai, where all the miracles were. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah. Oh, so Romans 3:19. Moreover, we know that whatever the Torah says, it says to those living within the framework of the Torah, in order that every mouth may be stopped and the whole world be shown to deserve God's adverse judgment. For in his sight, no one alive will be considered righteous on the ground of legalistic observance of Torah commands, because what Torah really does is show people how sinful they are. But now, quite apart from Torah, God's way of making people righteous in his sight has been made clear, although the Torah and the prophets give their witness to it as well. And it is a righteousness that comes from God through the faithfulness of Yeshua the Messiah to all who continue trusting. For it makes no difference whether one is a Jew or a Gentile, since all have sinned and come short of earning God's praise. By God's grace, without earning it, all are granted the status of being considered righteous before him, through the act redeeming us from our enslavement to sin that was accomplished by the Messiah Yeshua. God put Yeshua forward as the kapara for sin, through his faithfulness in respect to his bloody sacrificial death. This vindicated God's righteousness, because in his forbearance he had passed over with neither punishment nor remission the sins people had committed in the past, and it vindicates his righteousness in the present age by showing that he is righteous himself and is also the one who makes people righteous on the ground of Yeshua's faithfulness. I like that. So what room is left for boasting? None at all. What kind of Torah excludes it? One that has to do with legalistic observance of rules? No, rather a Torah that has to do with trusting. Therefore, we hold the view that a person comes to be considered righteous by God on the ground of trusting, which has nothing to do with legalistic observance of Torah commands. Or is God the God of the Jews only? Isn't he also the God of the Gentiles? Yes, and he is indeed the God of the Gentiles, because, as you will admit, God is one. Therefore, he will consider righteous the circumcised on the ground of trusting, and the uncircumcised through that same trusting. Does it follow that we abolish Torah by this trusting? Heaven forbid. On the contrary, we confirm Torah.
So Abraham set right by faith. What then shall we say that Abram, our forefather, according to the flesh, has found? For if Abram was set right by works, he has something to boast about, but not before God. For what does the Scripture say? Abram believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Now to the one who works, the pay is not credited as a gift, but as what is due. But to the one who does not work, but trusts in him who justifies the ungodly, his trust is credited as righteousness. Just as David also speaks of the blessing on the man to whom God credits righteousness apart from works. Blessed are those whose lawless deeds are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man whose sin Adonai will never count against him. Is this blessing then only on the circumcised or also on the uncircumcised? For we say, trust was credited to Abram as righteousness. In what state then was it credited? While circumcised or uncircumcised? Not while circumcised, but while uncircumcised. And he received the sign of circumcision as a seal of the righteousness of the trust he had while he was uncircumcised, so he might be the father of all who are trusting while uncircumcised. That righteousness might be credited to them as well. Also, he is the father of the circumcised, to those not only circumcised, but also walking in the footsteps of the trust of our father Abram before his circumcision. Trusting the promise. For the promise to Abram, or to his seed, to become heir of the world, was not through law, but through the righteousness based on trust. For if those who are of the Torah are heirs, trust has become empty, and the promise is made ineffective. For the Torah brings about wrath, but where there is no law, neither is there a violation. For this reason it depends on trusts, so that the promise according to grace might be guaranteed to all the offspring, not only to those of the Torah, but also to those of the father of Abram. He is the father of us all. As is written, I have made you a father of many nations. He is our Father in the sight of God, in whom we trusted, who gives life to the dead and calls into existence that which does not exist. In hope beyond hope, he trusts that he would become the father of many nations, according to what was spoken. So shall your descendants be. And without becoming weak in faith, he considered his own body as good as dead, since he was already 100 years old, and the deadness of Sarah's womb. Yet he did not waver in unbelief concerning the promise of God. Rather, he was strengthened in faith, giving glory to God. He was fully convinced that what God had promised, he also is able to do. That is why it was credited to him as righteousness. Now, not only for his sake was it written that it was credited to him, but for our sake as well. It is credited to us as those who trust in him, who raised Yeshua our Lord from the dead. He was handed over for our transgressions and raised up for the sake of setting us right.
Hebrews chapter 7, 1. For this Melchizedek was king of Salem, Kohen of God Most High. He met Abraham returning from the defeat of the kings and blessed him. And to him Abraham apportioned 1/10 of everything. First, by the translation of his name, he is King of Righteousness, and then also King of Salem, which is King of Shalom. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like Ben Elohim. He remains a Kohen for all time. Now, see how great this man is. Even Abraham, the patriarch, gave him 1/10 out of the plunder. Indeed, those sons of Levi who received the priesthood have, according to Torah, a command to collect a tithe from the people, that is, from their kin, although they have come out of the loins of Abraham. But this one who did not have their genealogy has collected tithes from Abraham and has blessed him, the one holding the promises. Now it is beyond dispute that the lesser is blessed by the greater. In one case, dying men receive tithes, but in the other,
one about whom it is testified that he lives on. Through Abraham, even Levi, the one receiving tithes, has paid the tithes, so to speak. For he was still in his father's loins when Melchizedek met him. Yeshua our Kohen Gadol forever. Now if perfection was through the Levitical priesthood, for based on it the people have been given the Torah, what further need was there for a different Kohen to arise, designated according to the order of Melchizedek, not according to the order of Aaron? For whenever the priesthood is altered out of necessity, an alteration of law also takes place. For the one about whom these things are said belongs to another tribe, from which no one has officiated at the altar. For it is clear that our Lord has sprung forth from Judah. Concerning this tribe, Moses said nothing about Kohanim. And it is even more evident if another Kohen arises like Melchizedek. Yes, more evident when another Kohen arises from like Melchizedek. One made not by virtue of a Torah requirement of physical descent, but by virtue of the power of an indestructible life. For it is testified, if you are a Kohen forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. For on the one hand, a former requirement is set aside because of its weakness and ineffectiveness, for Torah made nothing perfect. But on the other hand, a better hope is introduced, through which we draw near to God.
That is certainly an interesting passage, isn't it? I'm not too sure anyone's really got their head fully around that. How that actually operates and kicks in and comes into being with Melchizedek. You're a Kohen forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Yeah. We'll have a discussion about that sometime. The guys, we'll have a discussion about that sometime amongst the guys, especially to start with. There's so much in the scripture to get our head around, isn't there? And to really enjoy the fullness of it. So last week, what was that? About Noah. Yep. And what was the fundamental thing that occurred during that time? That brought salvation for mankind, doesn't it? It brought salvation for mankind afresh. So thankfully, God found one man worthy. The only Ish Tzedek, the only righteous man, blameless at that period of time. Yep, he walked with God. He was obedient, and it was great. Nevi talked about that during the Lord's Supper. It's about obedience more than anything else. And that's our lives, really, being obedient. And that's why Yeshua said to us, it's better to be obedient than provide any offering of sacrifice. And each person needs to determine his own destiny. We all make choices. It's up to us to make the right choice. And there's plenty of instructions. We just need to read them. It says, work out your salvation. So if you're a lazy person, you'll have trouble. You will. Because it says it's important to work out your salvation, to understand, to study it, to find out, understand what it means to have accepted Yeshua, what it actually entails, rather than just floating along and hoping for the best, as a lot of us like to kind of do. We like to float along. Rather than really get to the nitty-gritty and ask the Holy Spirit, the Ruach, to really open things to us and to liven us up. We like to just let someone else do it for us. That's not what's intended, and it's not good for us. It's not healthy for us. As Apostle Peter states, faith, and James also, faith without works is Torah portion concluded with the genealogies of the three sons. And it continued on to Abraham, Abram, and Sarai, which we are reading about today. So this week, the Parashah Lecha means get going out. And most of us like to do what? We do. We like to sit down, don't we? We like to settle down. We like to get comfortable. And one of the interesting things is, I went to a conference this week, the Assemblies of God conference in Wellington, with all the other leaders of congregations. And the speaker talked about seeing things actually God's way, not just continuing on to do the way we do things because we're used to them and tradition and habit and custom, and overlook a lot of the things that Yeshua talked about. He actually, his congregation, he turned, God spoke to him about it, and basically it turned upside down, really. Because originally they were, everyone's comfortable just living life and not having people who sat next to them in the congregation. Had a large congregation. Didn't want anyone who smelt or anyone who, or looked different from a different perspective, who looked out of sorts, people off the street, people who needed Yeshua to change their lives. The congregation had become like many, people who are really kind of comfortable with their lot in life, just carrying on, enjoying it. It didn't mean that they weren't interested in helping the poor or those around them. But when it came to Yeshua's instructions and words of when did I minister, when did you go and visit someone in prison, or when did you go and help someone, or when did you go and step out of your zone to really be a blessing or to help change someone's life, the eyes just glaze over. It's an easy thing to do, and it's not until really probably some in your own family situations where you have someone who is different, someone who decides not to, for some reason, walk Yeshua's way, or someone who decides, someone who, commit suicide, or for any particular reason, or a mental illness, or different things that happen. How come it happens to me? You rock my boat. What's happened here? And it sometimes, it just takes a bit to actually look and think, well, who is Yeshua actually wanting to draw? We know the celebration of the Supper of the Lamb, of a feast Yeshua he talked in parables a lot, didn't he? And he talked about, to get our attention, about the situations of the day. And he had this wedding feast, and no one decided to come. The normal ones who were comfortable and had excuses, and it was acceptable to give excuses in those days. It's okay, and we should say, oh yes, nice. Don't rock the boat, and don't try and encourage someone else to do something different. Just accept and enjoy the life, enjoy the smooth thing. But what Yeshua said, he said, look, they're not coming to the feast. Go out into the highways and byways. Bring them in. He says, what Yeshua's words were? I didn't come for the comfortable. I didn't come for the rich. I came for the poor, the sick, all those different ones. The people of Israel. I came for the people who desperately need him. And so for the pastor, it changed his whole approach. He says, I've got to stop playing, in his words, church. I said we don't call that, but he said, we've got to stop playing it. Got to mean business. Either he's coming back or he's not. Either he's in that situation. And he said, many today are going to have to change their approach to things. Be defined. So people know actually who you are. Don't take just ideas from other places. We're talking to ministers and pastors and other leaders. And he said, oh, that sounds good. I'll add that to this and I'll add that to that. No, you've got to be distinctive. You've got to know yourself who you are in the Ruach. You've got to really understand for yourself where you are in God's equation. And so it was quite a challenge. And it gave me opportunity at that time to be able to discuss with the numbers of, many have forgotten what the words in this are about, and the life, words of life. Many congregations have moved away from it. Gave a great opportunity to say, well, God's doing a new thing, a new fresh thing. And it's kind of not necessarily what they thought. It's returning to what is in here. Because either we believe that Yeshua was there from the beginning. We know the word Elohim. It says, in the beginning, Elohim, which is the male we, us. We are there. Yeshua's there. Right at the beginning, we know with Avram met him. Met Yeshua before he became man. And we all got to believe that. We've got to stand firm on it, that he doesn't change. He's no different. And we've just got to get back to really understand that there's nothing different. But we've got to have that heart for people and want to know that they're the ones that God wants to see changed. So that was exciting. Exciting times ahead. Got to stand firm, stand strong. Know who we are. Know what we understand. Know what we believe. Know, more importantly, individually, I need to know who God is. And that he's right there. And each of us need to really understand that. And sometimes we just glaze over things. And we're selling ourselves out. So for Avram, it was interesting. He carried on with his father's unfinished mission. As with us, we've got to carry on the mission of those that were before us. To reach, and his purpose was to reach and settle the land of Canaan. And the name given to the promised land at the time, Avram and his wife and Sarai, they settled near Shechem, which is modern-day Nablus. And interestingly, as we've talked before, Shechem is the place where, even in Israel today, it causes the most problem for the Jewish people living there, in that area. Imagine how it would go down today in the UN. God says the original Zionists made an eternal promise to give the land to Avram and his offspring. They're getting a bit excited about that, aren't they? Sorry, Canaanites, we've decided that you have occupied the land long enough. This land has actually been earmarked for another people group. You can live here while they sort themselves out and grow into a large populace. And when they do, and the time is right, you will do the right thing and hand over control. Will be shipped out. That's exactly what God actually arranged. He assured Abram that it would one day belong to his offspring, the Jewish people. And they're coming back. And that's part of it, really important. But isn't Ishmael also the offspring? That's the part we do kind of forget when we're looking at the equation. He is part of the offspring. And in fact, his firstborn son and heir was actually entitled to the birthright. It's interesting. Abraham did cut the covenant and circumcised Ishmael at the age of 13. And he even suggested to God that he be the heir. But that wasn't God's plan. Thanks for your help, Abram, but no thanks. For your efforts, though, there will be trouble between your future siblings. Because you didn't do what was right and stood up as a man instead of saying, he didn't tell a lie when he said that Sarai was his sister. She was his half-sister. But he should have stood up as a man and took it on the chin and understood that he'd already heard from God that God would protect him and look after him. That's what he should have done. No different than Adam. Adam should have stood up and says no. And that's why Eve probably despised him for a long time, because she was probably looking forward, maybe, this is a surmise, maybe she's a surmise that Adam had enough nous to have stood up and said no and saved them all, but didn't. He just took the back seat, put his feet up, says, Eve, you can carry on. You can look after the thing for the moment, and I'll just cruise. And when things didn't go right, then told you so, wife. You should have listened to me. Unfortunately, today we have a situation, with where the men should have also stood up over the years. You know, it's this Me Too thing and all these other things that are occurring, and men should have stood up over the years and said, "Excuse me, that's not right." And there is a backlash. There is a problem. And I just encourage us men to stand up. Stand up for our women. Stand up for what's right, even though it may cost you. It's important to stand up and to be counted, even though it's not always favourable. It's not always seems to be the going thing to do. But men, stand up. Stand up for what's right. And do the right thing. And because we're in a situation today in society where we just, as men, we need to claim back the role of responsibility and leadership rather than abrogating it. And it's easy to do. You know, men like to have a crazy life. But women like to know certainty as well, and protection. Like to be encouraged. They like to be lifted up, inspired. So that's our role, to inspire them. And women, let them inspire you. Encourage them to inspire you. When that happens, you've heard of the trickle-down theory? It doesn't happen today with the finances. You know, they talk about large companies should let the finance trickle down in salaries, etc. That doesn't kind of happen. But if men stand up, it will trickle down. Stand up before God. Stand firm. Stand right. Encourage singles. That was another aspect we talked about. In congregations, you know, single folk should be inspired, encouraged, not just people who are married, to stand tall, to take their place, to be involved, to encourage, be a blessing to others, to minister. And in congregations, you know, more than ever, that's where it should happen. You know, everyone should be encouraged to take leadership, to know what God has placed in your hearts. Let's be inspiring to each other. It was a costly mistake for Abraham, wasn't it? It was a very costly mistake. We may see a clear correlation with the political situation in the Middle East today. The Palestinians have gained control of large tracts of land, which leaves some Israelis wanting to see the Promised Land divided. They believe that establishing a separate Palestinian state beside the Jewish state will create peace. Many around the globe, they think it's a good solution. Two-state option. And interesting enough, I was talking to the ambassador again a couple of days ago, and he said, asked, what's your view? He said, well, off the record, and from my perspective, it just wouldn't work. And he's right. It just wouldn't work. But everyone else doesn't see it from God's perspective. We often come up with perspectives that are from the world's perspective. Even our lives, we compromise different things. We allow them to happen, but we've got to look back. What is God's view on things? And it's not always favourable. You know, they won't always pat you on the back when you come up with that solution. But stand firm about it. Be nice about it, but stand firm. Have the Jewish people survived a threat of extermination through 2,000 years of persecution? Just for things to happen, be taken over again? No. God made more than a promise to Abram. He made a blood covenant. And he gave it through Isaac and Yaakov as an eternal inheritance. Abram didn't have to do anything to establish the covenant with God. God alone walked through the animals that Abraham sacrificed, indicating that the covenant he cut was unconditional with Abraham. Abraham didn't have to do anything. And that's important. That's the difference. Is that his covenant with Abraham was unconditional. God caused a deep sleep to him. And probably it was to emphasize the unconditional character and to prevent Abram from walking through it. It's actually an ancient practice. Both parties would walk through the offering if it was conditional. But because only God walked through it. And that's the same with us, with Yeshua. It's only through him. There's nothing that we can add to it. It makes it unconditional. In terms of what God is offering. Total restoration. Total wholeness. Many scriptures declare that God's everlasting promise, which shows that Israel's claim to Canaan is not political, but by divine right. Of course, there is a great opposition to God's word. The Canaanites and their weapons and their allies, and so do the enemies same of Israel today. They both gained some temporary victories in their efforts to claim the land. But God, ultimately, he owns all things. His everlasting covenant with Abraham will stand, even with regard to Jerusalem, being prepared in God's plan as a central focus and the capital of the kingdom of Israel. And through it, Abram was introduced to Melchizedek, the king of Salem. The Torah doesn't tell us much about Melchizedek. We know that he ruled as a king. He had no known genealogy. He ministered as a priest of God. He ruled in the city of Salem. He worshipped God Most High. He blessed Abram, and he received a tribute, a tithe. The Torah doesn't provide any further information beyond this. But like Enoch's character in Genesis 5, the mysterious Melchizedek invites a lot of extra thoughts. And both Jewish and Christian traditions have embellished it quite a bit. Melchizedek was not a personal name. It seems to have functioned as a title, like the name Abimelech, or father of a king. We do not know that the personal name of Melchizedek, who met Abram, and similarly the word Messiah functions as a title, not as a personal name. The scriptures refer to any king over Israel as Messiah, the anointed one. In the same way that we call Yeshua the HaMashiach, one might call him Melchizedek. He's the king of righteousness. And the prophet Jeremiah spoke of the coming of the Messiah as the king who accomplished, behold, the days are coming when I will raise up for David a righteous branch, a Nazir. That's why the early believers were often called the Nazarenes or Nazariti, the branch. And he will reign as king and act wisely in justice and righteousness in the land. And the Torah tells us that Melchizedek is the king of Salem. The Bible identifies Salem as the ancient city of what? Jerusalem. Yeah. And his tabernacle is Salem. His dwelling place is also called Zion. The association with Jerusalem heightens the Messianic imagery, the idea of the king of righteousness ruling over Jerusalem points towards the Messianic era, which is upon us. And when the Messiah comes, Jerusalem will be the capital city of the kingdom. And that's why there's so much battle in the heavenlies right now. There's so much opposition to it. It's because it's God's. He's going to plan it. He's ordaining it. He's wanting it to be made firm and in place. And nothing will come again, nothing will stop it happening. The writer of the book of Hebrews points out that the term King of Salem could be read as the King of Peace. We know in Arabic, Salem also means peace. So if you're travelling to Israel or those areas, don't be afraid to say Salem, but look for the right person rather than Shalom. You say Shalom to the Jewish person, say Salem to the Arab. It'll save you getting yourself shot. Yeah. When God commanded Avram to walk the length and the breadth of the land, it was not just for a little sightseeing stroll. It fulfilled a legal custom in ancient times to claim ownership of a property of walking through it. The Egyptian and Hittite kings would regularly leave their grand palaces to ceremonially walk through their countryside in order to confirm the ownership of their land. And that's one of the interesting things is, you know, you want to claim something or see something that you really believe that God has provided. You know, that's part of the thing. Walk around it. Walk through it. See it. Visualize it. Pray. Ask Him for it. When Noah walked with God and Avram walked before God, they paved the way to the world to come to the knowledge of faith in the one true God. That's part of the walking. Legally, Avram walked the length of the breadth of the land. He took possession for himself and his descendants. And as I mentioned before, that's something that sometimes we need to do. We really need to get hold of things. We need to be praying in the Spirit. We need to see things in the Spirit. And to really get hold of, especially with difficult things happening in our families. You know, walk around it, see it. See it from God's perspective. Pray it through. You know, it takes hard yards. It doesn't just come easily or quickly often. But just really get hold of it. Get hold of God. Get hold of, just like the woman who had no answer for her years of pain and agony. Get hold of Yeshua's seat, you know? Just grasp hold of his garment and really pray it through, see it through. We often want things to, as I said right at the beginning, we often want things to come on our lap, in a platter, nice and quick and easy, you know. But no, break through, see it through, become part of you, really believe for it, get others around you, break through, get others to pray with you for things. Really encourage that. That's what family do. Get hold of it. See it happening. It's interesting, Lech means go. Lecha means to you. And often you think, oh, that'll make sense. It says, if you read it, go to yourself. That works beside going out. It's also going to yourself, really understanding within what God has placed within. Really understanding what God has seeded and placed in your life. Really getting hold of it. Once we come to the realization of our God-given destiny, when we hear the divine call on all things, says, Lecha, go forth. Take hold of it. Take hold of that situation. See it through. And sometimes you think, oh, goodness, it's been going on for years and years and years. Yes, sometimes it may do. But see it through still. Really don't let go until he answers you. I'll just finish here with, it says, and through your trust and your faith, God is protecting you by his power until you receive this salvation, which is ready to be revealed in the last day. God's destiny for Avram to become the father of the multitude of nations, even the Gentile nations, is fulfilled in a significant way through Yeshua. And even though he couldn't see what was happening, he hung on there. He broke through often. He gave the nice, smooth, easy land to his nephew down by the. He saw the promise in the rough country, the high country, but he knew that's where God had placed him. And he wasn't going to let the smooth talk or the smooth path, captivate his heart. He knew that God wanted him to break through and to take the higher land. And that's what we need to do. We need to take the higher land, the higher path. It won't be easy. Well, it's not always easy. But it's rewarding. It's exciting. And don't forget also, from that point, you can look over and you can actually see where people need a help and a hand, and how we can actually provide for that. As Yeshua said, go out into the highways and byways. Go, look around. Let's see where people have the need, and compel them to come in. And compel them. Provide what you have for them. Be there for them. Let that seed burn within us. Stay firm. Be excited. And let people then see how mighty your God and my God is. That's what they need to see today. Let's be that. Because he is coming. Shabbat Shalom.